Okay, today I'm going to be looking at some of Karen Curry Parker's human design content. And those who watch my channel will know I'm very, very biased, when it comes to, I really have a bone to pick with a lot of people who come to human design from astrology and things like that. Never had a bone to pick with Karen. I've always loved her work. Maybe loved is a strong word. I bought her books and I like to read them. And I enjoy reading them because I enjoy reading human design content. I especially enjoyed her transit ones with the journaling questions, even if I rolled my eyes at some of the journaling questions. But I think people naturally kind of roll their eyes at things that they just don't normally look at. And especially because I'm coming from a personality typology background. I definitely see how the different temperaments, for instance, the intuitive feeling temperament is opposite of the sensing thinking temperament, and how the different combinations of these temperamentally, we don't always get, just because Ra had a certain temperament, or because certain, we get different flavors and different takes in human design, in part because of the diversity of cognition, because of the different temperaments. And oftentimes, people of a certain dominant temperament will roll their eyes at the opposite temperament. And you have really strong ST people rolling their eyes at the NF. And when you get into the gendered temperaments, which is where the work of objective personality takes us, if you study, you can go to objectivepersonality.com, Dave Powers, Shan Renee. If you get into objective personality with these temperaments that are actually gendered, you can see also that there are completely other sides of the binaries that get neglected. So for that reason, I really do enjoy reading even a little bit. I have the my friend is, letting me borrow the big Gene Keys book, but has for the last couple years. So I've had ample opportunity. I don't really pick it up very often. I maybe should. Just a moment. So I do have the Gene Keys materials and things like that, and I don't think Karen Curry Parker is as far off from human design as Gene Keys is. And even Gene Keys can be exactly in agreement with human design in certain very particular areas. The point is they're different kind of competing, or sometimes cooperating, but mostly competing metaphysical research programs. So I practice human design. Karen Curry Parker practices quantum human design, which is going to have mostly a lot of the same overlap, I think. But, she does different stuff. She does emotional freedom techniques, probably, I'm pretty sure, with tapping and maybe neuro-linguistic programming and things like that. And, while every self-help system is suspect to me, simply because the whole system is so riddled with so much seven-centered stuff, at the same time, if we're not going to embrace new, I actually want to do a whole series on post-1781, whatever we want to call them, systems that have been developed post-1781, because developments that have occurred post-1781 have still, of course, occurred, as everything does, in this kind of leftover world of conditioned seven-centered pressures. But it's nevertheless, if it came from a real mutative experience or event after 1781, there is the potential that, like human design, it is this kind of mutative knowledge. And then especially as you get into post-1961, which is with this first line, final phase of the cross of planning before going into the cross of the sleeping phoenix, right? And you look at systems that were developed, like neuro-linguistic programming and emotional freedom techniques, tapping. I know people do bars. I don't know, family constellation therapy, something I hear about. I don't know how recent that is. I'm trying to just think of recent modalities, so to speak. There's something to be said for the development of things that emerged in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s to the present, right? And these very new systems, while many of them may be corrupted by sort of not self agendas and so on, and may have a terribly wrong philosophy when it comes to trying to empower the mind, because that's again the fundamental crux of human design is that for 90,000 years the human experiment was to become the apex predator through the mind mastering the form, and now the mind has to become the passenger, and that's the fundamental story, right? And so to become the passenger, isn't something the mind can really do. It has to be it has to be wrested control from, right? So it's this interesting thing where I basically I do a very conventional form of human design where I really do believe it is about wresting control from the mind. It's very different from, for instance, Gene Keys, where it's all about contemplation. But I can still appreciate Gene Keys, even if it's a little bit different, and I can still kind of stick to my idea of what it means, which is really, for me, it's not even, it's basically, human design kind of boils down to a practice, and the practice is almost the cultivation of a certain head state where you don't really see things in the same way. It's kind of like holding on to the way you would see things on psychedelics, for instance. But you're not on psychedelics. Maybe you are, but you can function in the world, and you are able to kind of experience. It's not really an emotional detachment, because sometimes you'll be extremely emotionally engaged and you'll be able to recognize with that much more clarity what that means to you and what those emotions are. For instance, because the mind has taken the back seat or the passenger, or however you want to look at it, and it's no longer trying to control. But again, we've had so many years of this. We live in this world. So I think in discovering systems that have emerged more recently, like neuro-linguistic programming, stuff like that, and I just bring this up because I know Karen Curry Parker, I saw, had mentioned some sort of emotional freedom techniques stuff. I don't know much about this, but I'm just saying there's no reason fundamentally to be adversarial to new systems that have emerged, because there are plenty of second lines out there, and right variable people, and all sorts of configurations where, and even first lines who come to these conclusions on their own, and third lines who've experienced enough of the Maya to learn some of the constants of the Maya, and enough, fourth lines who are given a solid foundation in these things. There are some, but again, the depth of the human design knowledge, right? It's basically, it's important. It's important that we don't immediately neglect other systems that were developed very recently, even though those systems may have a certain propagandistic elements to them, kind of not self-propaganda. Because, there may be ways to kind of glean things from these systems. So I know Karen Curry Parker, right, does. So, okay, so let's see what she says. Let's just take a look. I'm really sorry it's so windy out here. This is Santa Fe. It's very pleasant out. It's very nice, but it is kind of windy. It's the high desert. It's at 7,000 feet here. So I'm on Karen Curry Parker's site. So the projector. Yeah, I love what she writes when she's kind of, I like her, writing style. So she calls projectors orchestrators. 64 Keys calls projectors coordinators. I don't know. I guess there is no projector for Gene Keys. It would be interesting, to build a spreadsheet and just to have the different... I love this stuff. So they have a life purpose of managing and guiding others in the process of creation. Yeah, good definition, Karen. I mean, I saw a post on Instagram for Karen Curry's. It was a. I wish I could find it. Let me see. It was some kind of abundance manifestation. I didn't like the way it looked. The same way I don't really like the way Chet and Parkin, advertises. I don't think Chet and Parkin has a very good... It's like $1,400, and it's very like advertised to the not self. And I don't doubt that he knows human design analysis. I mean, he's a second line. He's a natural. He kind of just naturally fell into that life. And, he loves to talk about all the fate and the stories behind it and so on. But, I at least enjoy him. I at least enjoy Chet and Parkin. I enjoy that he refuses to tell anyone how to say his name. If you say, is it Shiten? He'll say, that is correct. He loves to mess with people, And you say, is that Sheetan? He's like, yes. Like, he just... But, I mean, oh my God. Hey, doggy. Welcome to Santa Fe. The lovely sounds of dogs barking as you walk down Agua Fria. Okay, so, yeah, projectors, that's... Okay, projectors are not here to manage and guide everyone. They have their own group of people who are waiting for their projector, quote, to guide them. Yeah, this is great. I think Karen is describing it great. I mean, I understand some of the complaints, like Barbara Chung was complaining on Facebook about, she's kind of one of my vocal critics, and she was complaining about Karen Curry Parker's definition of 27 as accountability. I talked about this in the human design state of human design thing, and that's not bad. Let people come up with different names for things. People want to use different names for things. Now, at the same time, this might be a little bit obscure, but I'm just gonna give an example. So I love personality typology. And I love a lot of other obscure things like avant-garde jazz and just plain old post-bop jazz and all sorts of electronic music and video games and so on. And I was thinking how each of these areas that I'm into, there's like a mutative core where there really either is or was a kind of time and place where there's a lot of change happening and a lot of innovation happening. And it's interesting because you can see how, like, in certain cases, I'll be involved in an actual innovative, mutative group in real time. In other times, I will have a lot of artifacts from that. Like, I love Dada. What a mutative group of people. To be around the Dada artists, the peak of Dadaism, that was like being around Ra around the time, human design was emerging into the world. And human design is the same level of like the real deal peak mysticism that a really good band is, right? So it's interesting. I guess all I'm trying to say is you can draw parallels. It's almost like Hermann Hesse's glass bead game, where there are parallels between these different systems, and each of them has a mutative edge to it. And at certain times, the most mutative pop band was the Beatles for a while, and they were on a global stage watching that, mutation happening. And there are other examples where the mutative New York art scene of Andy Warhol and that whole group, or, there's all these little scenes. So I was thinking most specifically about personality typology and how that's such a mutative scene where the most mutations happening in objective personality right now. Hands down. The work of the objective personality, research program is just incredible. Anyone into Jungian personality type, Myers-Briggs, any of the offshoots like Juan Sandoval's cognitive type, or any of these typology systems should absolutely check out objective personality, right? Because that's such a mutative little core. And when I look at the way information is communicated in that mutative core, it's all in shorthand. It's all in ellipses, so to speak. It's all in kind of, everyone knows the same vocabulary. They're developing the vocabulary, they're sharing, they're communicating, they're asking questions. It's such an amazing thing to watch that mutation happen and to watch these concepts emerge and this differentiation emerge, this ability to see humanity in a more differentiated way. And so what's interesting is, right, when you go to Myers-Briggs, you're getting really 16 types, and people will send me the results of their Myers-Briggs test. And so I think I mentioned this as an anecdote a few weeks back, but I was sitting there on the objective personality Google Drive document, which was page after page after page of links to spreadsheets, links to data, links to documents, links to videos, links to definitions. I mean, it's a veritable treasure trove of multiple years worth of study of material. And, through all the discussions and the class archives and all this stuff. And it's really interesting to see how that's what the real thing is. That's what the real thing is. That's where it's really mutating. That's where it's really happening. And so people who just want to know their personality type, it's like, sure, that's fine if you just want to know your personality type and some, you might be able to get something meaningful. That's like giving somebody just strategy and authority. And that's fine for some people. They're not really interested in human design, but they're interested enough to want one piece of information, just give them that, right? And I think that is enough, even if they do want more, but just find that for, whatever reason, they're not going to be in a situation to have more information. That's fine, that's what it's there for. But I think, really digging deep into human design or into any of these systems is going to look a lot like when I'm, on that Google Drive spreadsheet and it's page after page after page, and it's very much, it just looks like it's not flashy and everything's in shorthands and everything's in little inside jokes and references. And, when you're at the mutative core, you're just kind of part of the community. You're just on the scene. You're really just on the scene. That's all it is. And as someone who's on the scene, and who contributes your perspective, your unique outer authority, as appropriate, right? That's part of it, right? And you're just part of this little mutative scene. So then there's, I get this text message from my friend who's like, see, I'm not an ENTP like you said I am. I'm an INTJ. And it's a screenshot of personality junkie results, and that's the proof of being an INTJ. Well, just looking at this screenshot on a cell phone of a little character that pops up after you answer 30 questions, and then glancing over at my computer screen with the page after page after page of spreadsheets, it's like, that is the difference. That is the difference. And it's like that with businesses. You could really see it, as being part of Techstars, which is a very mutative, experimental, entrepreneurial startup accelerator. You could see it. You could see the real geniuses there at work. And they're all ages, and they're all genders, and they're all shapes and sizes, and it has nothing to do with that. It's part of just being part of this mutative core that gravitates to a particular nexus. And it changes over time, right? And Monte Verita, or however it's called, the mountain of truth, where Hermann Hesse was hanging out with Carl Jung and people, that was a mutative core, and there are so many others, right, that we could think of all genres. And there's kind of peaks like peak eras of music, golden age of studio recordings, golden age of jazz, all these things. And you can really see by looking at history as a series of mutations. And in each time, the mutative core was a scene of people that could all be in a room together. There were not that many people, you know. And if they all happened to be there, you know, they all would recognize each other and kind of know each other. And that's part of, and of course it's individuals. It's the individuals who always create, who always mutate. But it's these mutative individuals who sometimes find themselves, and I don't mean to say that, you know, mutation doesn't happen from far and wide. It does. It's just that, you know, it's you can see that there's something that it looks like, and what it looks like in the mutative nexus is that people are all actually communicating at a level of information transmission that is extremely efficient and extremely experienced and knowledgeable, where everyone is kind of like the kinds of questions in the objective personality group or in the, you know, you can see that people are really kind of at that level. And, you know, and at the same time, there can be these ossified groups too. So we really have to see, where is it still mutative and where is it, you know, to me, human design is the most mutative knowledge on the planet right now, at least as far as mysticism goes. And I'm sure that I could try to find, you know, the most mutative art collective or the most mutative jazz band, or, you know, or it's at least scene or system. But, you know, to me, it's not about a, you know, more or less mutative, other than to say you can kind of start to recognize certain characteristics. And the characteristics are basically just the ability to share information in a very meaningful way, that's an accurate way, that relies on the terminology and jargon of the system, and that essentially is either making a joke, which is a totally valid way of learning a system. It's like learning a language. If you're learning human design, you are learning a language, and learning that language requires making jokes in that language and understanding how it could be funny. And, you know, there's so many different approaches to it. I like to approach it through lines, because lines are a great parallel to learning about your digestive regimen and color, you know, and a great parallel to learning about the tonal underpinnings and so on. So I personally like to approach it that way. I also like to approach through type, through definition. I love to approach a human design knowledge simply through circuitry, looking at which of your friends belong to which different circuitry and what configurations and what dilemmas there are. For projectors, I always love to approach human design through partnership analysis. You know, they can see how they connect to people. For people who have right variable placements, particularly on the personality Sun Earth, but I mean, in any case, all rightness should be understood. I mean, anyone who's not in probably the top left quadrant like me will really benefit from understanding rightness. Although I'm probably the worst person to explain it, because I explain it in terms of the pattern matching of my left perspective. But in any case, I guess what I'm saying is, in these mutative little circles, which is where you really want to be, you know, that's where you want to be, with the people who have that vocabulary. And if they don't, they're okay with you using that vocabulary, and they're willing to learn and start to make jokes in it and say, oh, that's such a second line thing, and so on. That's all great. I'm not trying to police a certain dogmatism. It's like, yeah, we have to be dogmatic, and in some sense the not self hates dogmatism, because there is a sort of ability, you know, for the mind to do its Hall of Mirrors trick, and to, you know, it always has an escape, whereas dogmatism is kind of a no escape, no choice sort of theme. So, you know, but you have to have the right dogmatism. And so I'm not some sort of extremist who thinks, you know, don't make jokes about the types and don't this or that. No, it's a language. We're learning a language. We're speaking to each other in a language. It can be so gratifying to finally have a language for so many things that we didn't have words for before. We didn't have a way of explaining. We didn't have a way of understanding, or even, we would see them time and time again without really being able to explain them. And now that we have words for these things, it's so powerful. And to be able to see the mechanics and the dynamics and all of this. So I guess what I'm just saying is, I do think Karen Curry Parker is doing a different thing where she's bringing, it's almost like she's bringing to a different group, maybe. Or maybe she is doing the same thing. Maybe it's just her metaphysical research program that has led her, maybe even just for something as simple as legal reasons, to change the keynotes. Or maybe she does feel that the keynotes that she's changed are better. Or maybe she's just trying to get people to kind of wake up and take a different view on it and stop, because we do associate so much. My buddy Mike said she calls manifesting generators time benders, and that was news to me. That's wild. It's that's so fun. I have no idea why she would call them that, but even just for making my brain perk up. But I don't want to make light of how harmful certain parts of manifestation abundance culture are with the toxic positivity and yada yada. I want to instead ask if Karen Curry Parker is a sleeper agent for the form crystal to appeal to a whole different group of people that otherwise wouldn't get into human design, because she really speaks to them, right? And she's able, and I journal in her transit books, or a book at least. I bought one of them, and I would journal in it, and I enjoyed it. I had it next to my bathtub. I would take baths, and I would look at, the gate, and I really enjoyed it. And I plan to buy it again, and I have other books of hers I bought, and, so, okay, let's see what else we have. Let's take a look. Okay, so projectors, that all sounded good to me. That all sounded, so I'm going back. Okay, manifesting generators. Let's see. Time benders are essentially a hybrid between a manifester and a pure generator. So learn more of those posts. They respond very quickly and to more than one thing at a time. Well, that sounds great, and it's something that I kind of forget to stress sometimes, is that, I do talk about how manifesting generators are spinning many plates, or that they often have, just a moment. Yeah, that sounds all right on. Okay, scrolling down a little more. They skip steps. She's saying really good stuff. They have an internal non-verbal creative flow, and they can struggle to ask for help and react with frustrated anger when their flow is interrupted. Yeah, that's really interesting. Someone said the other day that when a manifesting generator gets really into their thing, their aura hardens like the manifester. I had no source for that. I don't know if Ross said that. It's not something I've known to look for, but it's something that I'm excited to be looking for, because regardless of the source of the information, I love learning essentially new things to look for. I don't just take human design as gospel. I take it as things to look for, and a vocabulary that gives us, ways of learning and ways of discussing all of this. So, okay, well, that was all great. Let me see what else, some of the other posts. Okay. Abundance by design, manifestors and money. I'm just scrolling through it, but it looks pretty right on. Talking about the need to inform, and how manifestors have their energy shut down and they try to hide what they're up to. This is all like, I don't know. I haven't seen anything yet that has made my alarm go off, other than a little bit of like, okay, this is kind of not as in-group as the fully technical, like, Karen Curry Parker's role is not to necessarily, I mean, she is doing her own work. She is doing her own metaphysical research program, right? She's changing some of the names. So far, I haven't really seen the changed understandings. But, I kind of am in favor of that. But I would say that I haven't found the inner circle. She isn't really transparent with her research in the way that, the objective personality group and so on is very transparent with its research. Like, they're approaching it more as we're all undertaking this research into personality type and learning more about human differentiation, which, by the way, 100% accurate. Now, Karen Curry Parker's, I shouldn't say 100% accurate, like, that there are 512. There are 512 types. Like, I absolutely, there are. Like, once you've seen a type doppelganger at that level, you don't really need to go to 1024. You certainly could, but the ability to have such a precise type doppelganger at only 9 levels of differentiation, which is kind of incredible just to think about that alone. That 520, well, so anyway, I don't want to go off on the deep end on personality type, but I'm relating it because I see how in the personality type groups there's a real openness of sharing in a way that is really aimed, it's not really just aimed for newcomers, but she is. That's cool, She's getting people who maybe have never encountered human design before. And I'm way happier that they're getting the accuracy of information that I'm finding on her website right now, on her Instagram. I'm way happier that now, okay, there's some motivational stuff. It's kind of like we are the creativity, the expression of the creativity of the divine. It's a very, kind of spiritual commitment or belief, but, I don't really mind that. Some people have more enthusiasm, right? Some people have gate 55 and it's really amped up. I don't know if she does, or, I have gate 25. So I kind of get it, but, okay, it's just kind of sweet too. It's hard for me to really be mad. She has a meditation for you today. Read each slide slowly and let yourself feel it. Now, normally I wouldn't do this, but I know at least if she's into emotional freedom techniques, she's probably also into neuro-linguistic programming. And I kind of like the idea, as much as I'm 100%, no choice, I also like the idea that our minds are so malleable and so easily conditionable and programmable that, self-hypnosis or hypnosis by another person, or, there's all sorts of things that, so this meditation. Okay. Yeah, this one, I don't need to, it's kind of nice. It's very, it's nice. I'm not a tribal person, so this one says, being supported is my birthright and my natural state. That's kind of sweet. It's a little funny. I don't really go for this. This doesn't really do it for me in the same way that actual, formulas and, you know what I mean? Yeah, this one, wow. Wow, that was a much bigger one. I kind of see it. It's very personality crystal, but that's what the mind is anyway. I guess the real question is, what is this kind of stuff doing? Is it empowering the mind to think that the mind has more power over the body? I don't think so. It's making it kind of a religious aspect, but it's making it here she talks about surrender, compassion, and service to the cosmic plan. I mean, surrender, absolutely. Compassion, I mean, that's the very, like, what, should we not have compassion? I mean, I definitely think that the Buddhists will sell you on the compassion game all day long, and you won't necessarily get the same level of, help you can get from even just, Jungian psychological vocabulary and understanding of psychodynamics, let alone human design vocabulary, which can really explain the mechanics of almost everything in your life. Whether it's, I shouldn't say almost everything, but almost every area of your life, it has something to say. But yeah, I mean, so she's saying, I guess it's a little bit, saying, surrender, compassion, and service. The divine path and to divine timing, I'm always in the right place at the right time with the right people. I mean, that kind of affirmation doesn't really do it for me because, for me, I want to dig into, like, you're an undefined G-center person. Probably most of the people in your life might not be so good for you, sorry. No, I shouldn't generalize. I feel like such a jerk saying that. It's been my recent thing to really be learning about the undefined G-center, not self, versus the true self, which I believe then allows them to see very clearly who is correct for them or not. So when they're in the not self, paradoxically, when they're looking, they can't be seeing, And all they're here to do is to see who is correct for them or not through their undefined G-center, and thereby to align themselves with those who take them to the right places and trust those people to continue to take them to the right places and to communicate and inform those people, of what they're looking for and so on, as the case may be. Okay. And so in the affirmation continues, making the right choices to fulfill my destiny and the energy of Source God working through me to serve the world. I mean, that's kind of a sweet idea. I don't know. Okay, next one. I fully express my mastery, my heart, my authentic self. It's right under the H there. My unique place of service and my joy. I mean, these are all, I'm kind of scrolling through them now. I mean, these are just kind of like, they remind me a lot of, I loved going to this restaurant, Silence Heart Nest in Seattle. And it's so amazing. I hope they can reopen someday. They had to close. They're so good. I've been to their brother and sister restaurants. They're all adherents to Sri Chinmoy. They're followers of Sri Chinmoy. So they're in a cult, but it's a really sweet cult. And they're all really nice people. And I've gone to I even got invited, I went to their private event where, I guess kind of private public, but I went to their opening where one of them, one of the cultists, a very sweet, one of the people I should say, played piano. And it was really great. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, they were very much, all Sri Chinmoy is about is like these kind of affirmations. Like, here's another one. I am love and loved. I am infinite abundance and action. That's like all he's about. Like, everything you see of his is a little card that says that. But their food was bomb, and they're like an exercise cult or something, because they would wake up early in the morning. I would see them some mornings, and they'd be out bicycling, and they're all in really good shape, and they're very healthy. I think probably no sex, drugs, or alcohol. I'm pretty sure it's like an abstinence cult. It seemed that way. I don't actually know that. And I'm not talking bad about it, because everyone has different ways of living, and everyone I met from that group was so sweet. But again, they're not going to be into human design. They're so deep in the personality construct, right? They're so deep in, the mind is the thing. And human design is, the form is the thing. And I think there's a lot of layers to get to the form is the thing. And it's really hard to get to the form is the thing from the mind is the thing. Okay, so what else does she say? So yeah, so she has stuff like that. I mean, that's kind of, it's not really human design, right? That's just affirmations, and it's kind of generic, and it's a little bit, but I mean, it's kind of sweet. I don't know. I used to love going to that restaurant, and I'll tell you what, it didn't bother me reading those little affirmation cards. Not that I actually said them to myself in a serious way, but whether I do or not, I mean, maybe it is kind of, I don't know, is Karen Curry Parker a fourth line? Like, it is maybe about externalizing. And if you externalize a bunch of positivity, yeah, that can be, a real, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's hard to explain my refusal, or I don't know if I call it refusal, but my reticence to throw KCP under the bus. Let's see. I love this full moon post. Let's see what she says about this. Oh, yeah, she's talking about the gate the full moon's in, and the difference between her will and things that she has to get done. Okay, so she's using the language of religion, which is kind of appropriate for gate 40, if you know what gate 40 is all about. She's using the language a little bit of organized religion, and she's using my and thy, but it's also like a certain strand of Jungian thought. I would almost just call it like white hat Jungian or something, or like, it's a little bit like, it's hard to describe, but it's like, I guess like Christian theology Jungian stuff, because, like I see that in a lot of Edward Edinger. She's saying, that gate 40, there's a difference between my will versus thy will and the divine agenda, right? And we are vital and irreplaceable parts of the cosmic plan. But I mean, if she's using this to get people, yeah, it's like, if she's like using this to get people to actually kind of surrender, I mean, I don't know though, because the thing is, every religion has kind of got people, to surrender to thy will, to a sort of God's will, and it just kind of results in sort of, it's, I don't know how to describe it. I'm at a loss for words. But, organized religion, I would say, has primarily gotten people to surrender to the authority of a God that says what is good or bad, and that thy will is thought to be that outer authority. Thy will is not like the sacral response. So if she's really saying, I am, because the thing is, like, I mean, I don't know. Is this really a kind of, I guess if she is saying, like, as a sacral generator, the divine will is expressed through her sacral response, sure, but is the divine will expressed through, I mean, I even feel a little weird saying that, but is it expressed through the splenic response? Is it expressed through emotional clarity? Like, to me, it doesn't really feel like the right metaphor, you know what I mean? Like being the vessel for the life force energy is a very sacral thing, right? Okay, well, I still haven't really found anything to have too much problem with. She's talking about order, gate 5. Oh, see, I love her writing. I love her writing so much. She's so personal. She's talking about her relationship to each gate. And, she's saying about gate 5 and order, and in a very personable way that, yeah, this is great. She's really, I'm not going to read this bit. You just check it out on her page. It's talking about order in gate 5. It's great. I mean, she's cool. She's talking about her personal life, her personal traumas. I mean, she's a real person, and she's very, like, open in this way that I really enjoy. And I just kind of like, I mean, these kind of, I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit like, it's, yeah. Sorry, I'm reading right now. I'm actually, She likes her own posts. It's just kind of sweet. Look, I'm gonna like this one. I gotta like it. It might not be for everyone, but I don't really see anything that's really that bad. Like, it's kind of cutesy, but like, okay, like here she does for gate 2, which she calls allowing. I mean, it's a very yin kind of idea. The sunflower follows the trace of day, never questioning whether the light should penetrate her heart. She simply points her face to the sun. The world is light made manifest. Like the sunflower, I turn my heart towards source, never questioning my worthiness to receive. I mean, that's a very beautiful kind of affirmation for people that have undefined ego. That, you know, I don't know that they need affirmations, but maybe. I mean, hey, look, if our minds are all conditioned, and they're just going to be conditioned anyway, why not condition them with some good stuff, right? Why not hack your brain a little bit? I mean, of course, the danger is that people think then that they can use their mind to make decisions based on expectations, and the expectation that, you know, things are going to turn out one way or the other. But these affirmations don't seem to be about empowering you to make your expectation into reality by forcing reality to be your expectation. These affirmations seem pretty good. I mean, I don't know. I'm not about to start doing them per se. So she's talking about purpose here. Yeah. These are really nice. She's putting poems, really sweet stuff. Good, bravo, Karen. Yeah, I really like her. I see her crystals. She's very personal. I don't know much about her, but I just like her as a person. She just seems very sincere and sweet. And yeah, she might be doing a little bit of the love and light stuff, but she seems to be like speaking that vocabulary, but with a charitable reading of it, which actually tries to kind of evolve the discourse a little bit. Because I think there's a very charitable and a very uncharitable reading. And like a charitable reading would be if somebody is a generator and they said they don't know human design, but they've come to you and they said, well, I've learned the secret of manifesting. And you go, oh no. But then they say, I don't actually have to do anything. I don't even have to think about it. I just have to sit there. And then people just come to me. And then I find out after the fact what I manifested, you know. And then you go, oh, whew, they actually like discovered, you know, how the generator aura works or something. They just didn't have the right word for it. You know. But, you know, so when Karen Curry Parker says there's all different kinds of manifesting. But, you know, I do feel like it's a little bit too... I mean, I don't know. I like her as a person, so I'm not going to be able to say anything really bad other than, you know, some of the idea of only making right decisions and being God's will and all this stuff just seems very like spiritualist, when I'm not saying you don't have to believe in some sort of intelligence. I mean, or not believe, that's not even the right word, but, you know, acknowledge that there's some kind of order to the world, because I mean, it's incredible when you learn human design what incredible intelligence and order there is. But I guess I'm just saying that, you know, the stuff about being part of the divine will and the divine place and the right time and all this stuff, and being the instrument of the divine will, you know. I don't know. I don't know that it's really necessary. But maybe it helps some people. I mean, I'd be curious to hear, like, what are your thoughts? Put your thoughts in the comments. Does it help you, you know, with something, having these kinds of aphorisms and stuff? Root Center Challenge. What's this? Yesterday we talked about how you can't control time, but you can influence time and timing. This is cool. I'm just scrolling it, but she's talking about, wow, this is, I mean, she has pretty positive stuff. Like, she's doing her own thing. Now that I'm really seeing this, I'm really seeing that she is doing her own thing. Like, she's doing her own experiment. So I don't have enough information to comment on her experiment, but she's definitely doing her own experiment. Because here she's talking about how you can influence timing, and she's talking about root center and, you know, all this stuff. It's cool. She's in her... I mean, look, this is a little cheesy to me. In order to influence timing, you have to value yourself. Well, do I have to? I mean, I'm an undefined ego. Like, what if I'm just a nihilistic street punk? Like, can't I? I'm being a little facetious, but I mean, this whole... I mean, I guess it makes sense, though, that even undefined egos are going to struggle with valuing themselves. So that whether you're a defined ego or not, maybe... I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm curious now. Okay, you have to truly understand that you are a unique, vital, irreplaceable part of the cosmic plan. I mean, truly understand that. I don't really know what that means, but like, I guess she's just saying it's very important that you're like, you come to this realization, and that you are worthy of experiencing what you want and need. Okay, so it's a lot about personal value stuff. I don't know that I would put the focus on this, and I don't know what it has to do with timing. Like, it's interesting. I mean, she's trying to work on people's value of themselves, and it's like an interesting question. Like, what is the better... I mean, I feel like knowing about the ego, you really have to first distinguish whether people have defined or undefined ego. I'm not going to read the rest of this because it looks like it just keeps going, and there's some... But I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. She's doing interesting work. She is teaching human design. She's absolutely teaching it. She's teaching it in her own way. It's cool that she's going really in depth. I see she's doing all the root stuff. She's doing gates, new moon, gate 36. Very, very cool. I mean, she's... Yeah, so, and then she is doing something similar to what astrologers do, which, to me, I just kind of enjoy it because, like, I want to live in a world where I can kind of read the daily horoscope, but in human design language. You know what I mean? Like, I want to start reading her posts more because I see, like, new moon in gate 36, and even if it's a little hypey, like, we are being invited to truly trust and wait for the right timing. I mean, when is that not the case? But, like, yeah, it is a good point. Gate 36, I mean, gate 36 is about the emotional system and emotional wave. And, yeah, and then she says the new moon challenges us to not let boredom cause us to leap into chaos. Leaping into chaos would be very gate 36. So she's doing legitimate human design analysis. It's absolutely, like, as good as what you would get with, like, a top-level astrology kind of analysis of the transits. It's just interesting. We don't yet have information on whether the new moons and the full moons do anything other than... I mean, it sure feels like they kind of set a tone of sorts as these asymptotic points. So I'm kind of glad that she's doing this. But, you know, Ra never did the analysis of the gate the full moon is in, or the analysis of the gate the new moon is in, that I'm aware of. I mean, I'm sure he did, just by coincidence and so on, but he wasn't, like, talking about the lunar cycle, whereas astrologers always look at the lunar cycle. Oh, and you know what? I take that back. Ra does talk about the lunar cycle sometimes, so I'm sure he wasn't analyzing that. But I guess I'm just saying, like, she's doing a little more research on this. Okay, but then here, setting intentions. So the intentions we set with the 836 harness the ability to, or help harness the ability to stretch the boundaries of the story of humanity. Yeah, it's all about humanity. I mean, she's using good language, breaking patterns and creating miracles through emotional alignment. Kind of wild language, creating miracles. I mean, that's a little bit... I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe it's just different perspectives, right? Like, she's like, this stuff's a miracle, and I'm like, this stuff's mechanics. But I don't mean to be like, I mean, I am like, it's a miracle, especially when I take psychedelics, you know, and then I'm like, it's all a miracle. It's incredible. It's the most incredible miracle. You know, that the mechanics are what they are. Not the miracle of randomness, that some randomness out of chaos emerged, but the miracle that the order, it's miraculous how orderly reality is to be able to account for so much. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't like that exactly. Like, it's a little cringe. It makes me cringe a little bit. When people talk about, like, I think she talked about sacred commerce, too, and, like, sacred commerce just feels a little cringe, you know? The new moon challenges us to not let boredom cause us to leap into chaos. Yeah, I mean, gate 36. And I'm not going to read more of it. I'm trying to like skip around also because I don't want to ever take like full sentences. I guess I took a couple full sentences earlier in her full poem. That poem is beautiful. I just had to share that. I mean, that was so cool. I didn't know it was going to be so good until I started reading it. I like her writing. You know, I like her writing. There's definitely this thing about setting intentions, and that's an interesting one because personally I used to do a lot of setting intentions before I got into human design, and then I stopped. But some of that setting intentions work kind of prepared me for human design. I got to admit it. I got to admit that I kind of did prepare in a weird way. Like, one of my friends told me a spell you can do is like wait for the next new moon. And, you know, I never done spells. I mean, when I was a teenager messing around and stuff, and maybe in my early 20s a little bit when I was, I mean, yeah, I guess I'd done some spells. But anyway, this was a spell that she said for the new moon, you know, take all this stuff that you haven't forgiven yourself for and write on a piece of paper and then read it all, you know, out loud and burn a candle overnight. Then in the morning, read it again and then burn it on the candle and then leave the candle burning. Or no, don't burn it. Keep looking at it every night, you know, for 7 nights or until the candle burns down or something. And then at the very end, you burn it and you never think of it again. And I did stuff like that, you know, and it really did help. In fact, I haven't even thought of that because that was so long ago that I don't even really think of it anymore. But I did stuff like that did kind of, and I studied a lot of interesting, I mean, I was all over the place. I studied neurolinguistic programming on my own. Any system that existed, I wanted to study it. If it was some sort of fringe, weird system, I was scouring the internet for the bizarre. I was getting into, you know, CCRU, which, see, now when you say you're into the bizarre and the internet, people think of like darknet and fringe hate groups and stuff. But this was the 90s. You know, the 90s, and then I guess maybe it was still there, but I never found any of that stuff. But when I say, I just mean I was, you know, interested in all of the Rupert Sheldrake and the experimental mysticism and science and all of the weird, you know, Stuart Hameroff and microtubules with Roger Penrose and just all of these interesting, bizarre, you know, thinking aloud with Jeffrey Mishlove and all the kinds of people he would interview and all of that. And I just searched and searched and searched. I really did. And a lot of it prepared me. And during that time, so I was doing these things like setting intentions during full moons and stuff. Not always. I mean, I was never really that into it. But I guess I'm saying is, who am I to knock that? Like, what if you can still be following your design and set intentions during a full moon, or, a new moon, I guess. Is when I mean, it might sound a little superstitious, but like, or using the crystals. But maybe there are. I mean, here's the thing. I don't want to say that there aren't people, I mean, especially fifth tones and sixth tones and stuff. They're probably so sensitive to energies in ways we don't even understand. Like, right, you know, yeah, those right variables. I mean, even the fourth tone, inner vision, it's a turning away from the outer world. And the right variable is so receptive to things that the left doesn't necessarily understand. And all the stuff that emerged during end time right variable stuff, yeah, it's all mixed up with a bunch of not self stuff. But there probably is real technique in that, in some of that, anyway. I'm not going to say there isn't. I haven't investigated it enough to write it off. Okay, well, thanks for listening. That was my look at the work of Karen Curry Parker, and I appreciate everyone for listening. And if you are Karen Curry Parker, I appreciate your work. I really just wanted to take a look at it and see what I found, and you know, I like it. I like the way the writing, and yeah, so you know, I mean, if people have things they want to put in the comments that they feel like really, really contradict human design ethos, I mean, of course some of the, you know, affirmation stuff might seem like you're giving the mind power, but I think all you're really doing is conditioning the mind. And I mean, it's really, of course, if you're conditioning it and have a certain expectation, you know, as Ra says in his beautiful, poetic, dark way, expectations are scars on the soul. You know, when you set expectations for yourself, you scar your soul. You know, it's really, you know, but at the same time, at the same time, setting an intention or doing some sort of experiment with that, why not? Why not? And maybe, I just don't know. The research is out for me. I don't feel like I have to do things to have positive mental attitude, because I just feel like I have a positive mental attitude. And then I feel like if people don't have a positive mental attitude, or if I'm in a really bad mood or something, I don't want a positive mental attitude. I want to be in that bad attitude. And that's just kind of the way it is for me. But some people might really benefit from positive mental attitude. Here's, I guess, one thing I will kind of end on. There's a brilliant evolutionary astrologer and just kind of archetypal astrologer, and also just very unique, comes up with a lot of his own research, idiosyncratic astrologer named Jason Hawley. And I am a huge fan of Jason Hawley, and we're also personal friends. Okay, well, he's not into human design, but that's okay. I've done a little of my own human design analysis on Jason. And in any case, we still remain great friends throughout it. Well, he has a really wonderful thing that he likes to talk about, which is about the necessity of different, maybe like the necessity of adaptation for some people at certain psychological phases of their life or periods of life, and the necessity of something different than adaptation in a different way. And he likes to use the day world and night world as the example. And the day world is like 9 to 5, like you have your job and you kind of live and you're adjusted and you're well adjusted, quote unquote. You can adapt, you can get along with people, you can kind of work and function in the world. Some people are struggling just with that. And so their struggle is to get to the day world functioning. Well, the people then that can function fine in the day world have a different struggle. They're mutants and freaks, and their struggle has to do with the night world. And they're the ones that get really into Jungian stuff in the world of the depths and so on. And then there's the twilight, which is a sort of a safe space of active imagination, and where you can make jokes and humor and conversationalism and all this stuff. And that's where Jason Hawley likes to be with his clients. But brilliant, probably, when I talk about mutation also, it's like it exists everywhere. And you want to talk about the mutative edge of astrology, cutting edge astrology, is someone like Jason Hawley, right? And he's about as mutative as it gets. He's the end of the road, as he's taken the cutting edge in the most brilliant, genius interpretations and ways of structuring and understanding the, astrological literature, and he has incredible takes on just about everything. Of course, there's going to be a mutative edge when it comes to other subgenres, like Hellenistic astrology will have a different mutative edge, and so on. And it's not just one person, it's a group of people, and they all kind of know each other and could all collectively be called the mutative edge of astrology. But, there's not another one. It's not like there's another mutative edge somewhere else in the world. And this mutative edge already is distributed across the world. So, yeah, it's always like that. There's always a little mutative edge. And I have no doubt that Karen Curry Parker is part of that mutative edge. And I guess all I was saying by bringing up Jason is that maybe Karen Curry Parker is helping people adapt to the day world. She's helping with adaptation more, and kind of more of the seven-centered sort of life issues. And so she's kind of taken human design, which really is a nine-centered science. Maybe it's nine-centered. I don't know. I don't know if she works a lot with right variable, or she works a lot with... But, it just seems like the kinds of issues she's dealing with are issues of adaptation and issues of just really trying to help people, kind of at a very humanist level. And this sort of humanist helping may be helping a totally different sector of people that don't want to learn the, Sun Ra of human design, which is Ra. He is kind of like, I'm making a joke there because Sun Ra is the avant-garde experimental jazz artist who might be hard for some people to get into unless they have context and are patient with learning some of the vocabulary of avant-garde jazz and so on, and also Black American music. But in the case of human design, Ra is kind of like the pinnacle of experimental, mutative mysticism. And maybe what Karen Curry Parker is kind of doing is transmitting and sharing some of that with people farther down the fractal line who would not actually be on my fractal, for instance. Maybe they will end up on my fractal, because of course they could. Because, like, as I was saying in my State of Human Design earlier, I crawled into human design. If you would have seen me 10 years ago, I was slumming it in the conspiracy theory forums and and in the weird. I mean, not that I believed it. I was just hanging out, with whatever was weird, right? And with whatever was alternative. And it wasn't negative conspiracy theories. It was more like New Age, Lemurian, whatever. I wasn't really ever into ancient. I never believed in any of that stuff. I just was like fascinated by it. I was completely fascinated by it, because I think that a fascination with the occult and the paranormal and that entire world goes hand in hand. And I had a pretty solid Jungian bent on things, even when I was regularly keeping up with that kind of information. Okay, well, that is it for today, and please leave your comments. Any comments you have, I'd love to read them. All right, thanks so much.